they had a larger-than-life CEO, and Sullivan, the CFO, had actually directed his subordinates to inflate revenues and to hide expenses. So when they went to market with their reports, they looked very good. These guys went out on an acquisition drive. They had a very incompetent and dominant CEO, and I think we've seen some of those in our own environments, and the board was very subservient. It just rubber stamped whatever the CEO wanted, and there was a lack of, checks and balances, completely lacking. The consequences, I think in March 2005, Ebbers again got 25 years in prison, and Mr. Sullivan, the former chief finance officer, he got away with 5 years. And I always find it interesting when I look at they say that he got away with 5 years for 11 billion accounting fraud after the court took cognizance of his cooperation with the investigation. In Shona, agatengesa, and that's what it boils down to. And then quickly look at Lehman Brothers. I think we've all read and seen of Lehman Brothers, leading US financial services firm. I remember that when I was doing my MBA, one of my dreams was to work for Lehman Brothers. It was just the place to be. Employing 26,000 people in 20 different countries, always rated highly as one of the best employers for MBA graduates. But when it filed for bankruptcy in 2008, it reported debts of 768 billion and only had assets of 639 billion. And the issue there, I find this is actually quite comical, what was happening at Lehman Brothers in terms of why and what happened. One of the issues there was really about the board and lack of oversight. And it was really found that they had a board which was unfit to serve and actually didn't understand the financial world. 9 out of 10 members of that board were retired. 4 members were over 75. 2 members were in their 80s. No disrespect to our grandparents, but in fact, only 2 members of the board had direct experience in the financial services industry, and even then, it was not that much. Now, even more comical, a 2006 member of the board just retired, was an 83-year-old actress. And another member was a 75-year-old theater producer. It was comical. It really was like a movie. The risk committee was headed by an 80-year-old board member, but it had only met twice, 2006 and 2007, even in the midst of the crisis. Now, that is, really, really bad. And the impact, therefore, has been, I think, far-reaching. We've seen that the OECD reviewing its corporate governance principles. We've seen the United Kingdom, they've just got principles that came into effect for the reporting June 2010. They had to go back and revise their own principles. There's been a lot of studies, but it just comes back to the same issue. It's about clarifying your board's role. It's about having a deeper understanding of what you're doing. It's about boards having a sound relationship with management. It's about the oversight. It's about improving risk management. And so the UK Code, like I said, has proposed, I think, a plethora of changes, but really nothing new, but just emphasizing, I think, on the good old principles of, I think, what we would call Ubuntu. So just to conclude, I think I like what Abraham Lincoln had to say. He says, you can fool all of the people some of the time, and some of the people all the time, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. And of course, given the dynamism and the energy that she displayed, I'm sure you are convinced that she's 21 years. Maybe at this point in time, I would like to invite for questions, comments.
I would like to find out from Susan, maybe from the research that you've done, how far Zimbabwe has gone with regards to the NEDs being given their position. I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, sorry, just repeat that with regards to?
The NEDs, the non-executive directors
Okay.
in corporate governance issues. Have they been given the opportunity to really do what they're supposed to be doing, or the board is still doing what they're doing, or is it the chief executive, or is it the chairperson?
Yeah. I think to answer that question, for me, the responsibility lies with the individual. Okay, when you accept a role as a non-executive director, do you know what you are going in there for? Okay, so I mean, there's in corporate governance, there's what is called the agency theory, which talks about the conflict between the shareholder and executive management. And it is an accepted fact that executive management will try to get away with as much as they can. That's why the non-executive directors come in between as, to bring in the checks and balances. Now, if the non-executive director is happy just to attend a meeting, get board fees, have tea, and have lunch, you've got a problem. So, it's not about them being given their position. It's about them taking responsibility and understanding why they are there. In fact, Mervyn King says directors should ask the questions. They should probe. They should ask the stupid questions even. But they don't ask for that. So I don't know if I answer you well, but my point is nobody's going to give it to you. I mean, when you went to school, nobody was going to give you a result. You were going to study, write the exam, and get the result. And for me, it's pretty much the same. The responsibility is on the directors. But I think what is lacking, perhaps, or what is still limited, is shareholders who demand accountability from the directors. And I know the systems are in place in the financial services sectors. The Reserve Bank insists on board evaluation, which is quite a detailed process, quite a cumbersome process. But as long as the regulators and the shareholders are not demanding accountability and are not challenging their non-executive directors, it's going to take us a bit of time. But like I said, with investors coming in from other jurisdictions, I think we'll see a transformation. One of the things that I expect is going to come up very soon is that we're going to see a bit of litigation. With like Van Hoogstraten tried to do a while ago, to say, I want to sue the board because they made bad decisions that cost me my investment. We will see more of that. In fact, I know in America, there are people that are in the full-time business of just buying, a little parcel of shares in a company and just going and agitating and actually holding boards to account. And they make a full-time business of that. And whether they're paid by other shareholders or not, I don't know how it really works. But so that's where we need to go to, and I think that's where we'll go.
The lawyer is not going to cause any trouble. I assure you, my sister. I was just thinking, and the first comment would be that lawyers may go out of business because of alternative dispute resolution. The good thing is that we have been pulled into this arbitration and everywhere, and we are together, and it looks like the issues still demand the attention of the lawyers. Your presentation really touched on certain issues that are happening in this country. Are we not heading for a storm with this indigenization versus corporate governance? What are your views? Is it not about time to call for courts to be enacted so that at least when us indigenous get into this phase, we'll have something to go by?
If I hear you well, you're saying, with indigenization, where is corporate governance? To summarize. Yeah, well, you know what? I think indigenization, and if I might say so, for me, is a good thing. In every country, there's one aspect or the other of indigenization. South Africa is driving BEE. Other jurisdictions, they all have their requirements. The fundamental issue is how you go about it, And I think that's what, as a nation, we have to address. And when we have empowered our people, it's important that our people go through the process of understanding what it is that is required to run these entities. It's important that we go through a process of educating each other about the governance issues. Otherwise, what stops me, taking over an entity and being in the same place as Enron, being in the same place as WorldCom? Those were big entities, but they collapsed. And the fundamental issues were corporate governance issues. So yes, we have to do a lot more. And I think we need to do a lot more conscientization. I think boards, like I say, should be better trained. And people need to understand that, when they take on board positions, they are actually taking a huge responsibility. They take on responsibility for a broad spectrum of stakeholders. And what is interesting and what we have seen in Zimbabwe is that as a director, you should be very wary because you can actually be held personally liable for the decisions you make. Remember, when you sit on a board, there is collective responsibility for the decisions, but there's personal liability for the consequences. And I don't know how many people actually stop to think about that. I think we've been more focused on the prestige of saying, well, I'm a director on 7 boards, and we haven't stopped to think about, firstly, what value are you adding onto that board, and if you really thought about the consequences of being in that position. So yes, these are issues that we certainly have to address and direct our attention.